It was a quiet morning in the small town of Maplewood. Ethan Harper, a retired military man, woke to the soft hum of his old furnace, the faint smell of engine grease still lingering from the day before. The air felt still, almost like the world was holding its breath, giving Ethan a few precious moments of peace. He slowly opened his eyes and glanced at the clock on his nightstand. It was just after 6 a.m., the perfect time to enjoy a cup of coffee before the world demanded his attention. Across the hall, Ethan could hear the familiar sound of his daughter, Emma, starting her morning routine. Her footsteps echoed down the wooden stairs, light and steady, as if she had been up for hours already. Ethan smiled to himself, knowing that she was probably preparing for another day of studying her engineering textbooks. She had inherited her mother's sharp mind, but it was her father's determination that always kept her going. Ethan could hear the faint sound of her humming to herself, and for a brief moment, everything felt just right. He rolled over and sat up, feeling the stiffness in his joints. Years of service in deserts and jungles had taken a toll on his body, but it was a price he paid willingly. He reached for the gold pocket watch on his nightstand, the one his grandfather had given him years ago. Ethan had always followed the same ritual, not just to check the time, but to feel the weight of the watch in his hand. It was more than just a timepiece. It was a symbol of his family's history and the promise his grandfather had made to him. With a sigh, Ethan stood up, stretching his stiff muscles. His dog, Rocky, a Belgian Malinois, lay on the rug by the door, always alert, always ready. As Ethan moved across the room, he reached down to give the dog a scratch behind the ears. Rocky's ears twitched in response, but he remained still, his eyes watching Ethan intently. Rocky had been by Ethan's side through it all, through the tough days and the long nights. He was more than a dog. He was family. As Ethan made his way to the bathroom, something unusual happened. A low growl came from Rocky, deep and guttural. It was the kind of growl that made Ethan stop in his tracks. He turned back to look at his dog, who was now on his feet, ears pointed forward, body tense. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Rocky never growled unless something was wrong. He moved cautiously towards the door, eyes narrowing as he peered out into the dim hallway. The house was eerily quiet, and the stillness made his pulse quicken. The growl from Rocky deepened, vibrating through the floorboards. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. There was someone, out of place. Ethan crouched low, reaching for the drawer by his bedside. His fingers hovered over the handle, but he didn't grab the pistol just yet. Instead, he motioned for Rocky to stay close. The dog's tail stiffened, and with a quiet snarl, Rocky slinked towards the door, nose twitching as he sniffed the air. Ethan knew something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The softest metallic click echoed from downstairs, followed by the faintest creak of a floorboard. Someone was in the house. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he slowly turned the knob of his bedroom door, just enough to slip into the hallway. His movements were slow, deliberate, as if the slightest noise would give him away. He glanced at Rocky, who was already on the move, eyes locked on the staircase. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he descended the stairs, his senses sharpening with every step. The house, once filled with warmth and comfort, now felt like a maze of shadows. The faint glow from the kitchen nightlight cast eerie silhouettes across the walls, but it wasn't enough to give him a clear view. The scent of leather and sweat hung in the air, an unfamiliar stench that made Ethan's skin crawl. He inhaled deeply, grounding himself, and moved silently toward the living room. His eyes darted toward the mantel where his grandfather's watch sat in plain view. It was always there, a constant reminder of the past. The stillness of the room felt stretched tight, like a wire about to snap. Rocky's growl deepened, vibrating through the floor beneath Ethan's feet. Something was happening, something Ethan couldn't fully understand yet, but he knew it was bad. Another sound, softer this time. A creak from the living room shelves pulled Ethan's attention away from the mantel. He held his breath, straining to listen. The faintest scrape of rubber against wood followed, signaling that the intruders were closer. His heart raced, but his focus remained steady. This was no ordinary break-in. This was something far more calculated. As he crouched low beside Rocky, the dog's body was tense, ready to spring into action at the slightest command. The warmth of the morning sun began to creep through the curtains, but it seemed completely out of place with the cold tension filling the room. Ethan stayed still, eyes fixed on the shadows in the corner of the room, waiting for the next movement. The intruder's presence became undeniable now. It wasn't just a random break-in. They were after something. Something important. Ethan's mind raced as the realization hit him. This wasn't just about stolen property. It was about family, about his legacy. And he wasn't about to let anyone steal that from him. Not without a fight. With a quick motion, he slid his hand into his pocket, feeling the cold metal of his grandfather's watch. His heart pounded, and his determination grew stronger. No one was taking what was his. As the tension built, Ethan braced himself for what was to come. He wasn't sure who these intruders were, or why they were here. But one thing was clear. They would soon realize they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated the power of a man who would stop at nothing to protect his family's legacy. And with Rocky by his side, Ethan Harper would stop at nothing to ensure that justice would be served. The silence of the morning was shattered by a muffled noise from the living room, followed by the unmistakable sound of a heavy object hitting the floor. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. His instincts kicked in as he turned to look at Rocky, who was already tense, ears perked, nostrils flaring. There was no mistake now. Someone was inside. This wasn't a simple robbery. This was calculated, and they had come for something valuable. Ethan's hand instinctively went to his hip, but he paused, realizing the urgency of the situation. He needed more than just a weapon. He needed a plan. With his military background, Ethan was used to working under pressure, and now, more than ever, he relied on those skills. He motioned for Rocky to follow and carefully made his way towards the living room. As he approached the doorway, Ethan held his breath, glancing at Rocky. The dog, usually calm, was vibrating with anticipation, the muscles in his body coiled tight. With a quiet, steady motion, Ethan pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. The living room was bathed in soft light from the kitchen's nightlight, the shadows casting an eerie glow across the furniture. And there, in the far corner of the room, was the figure of a man, crouched low, picking through Ethan's personal belongings. The man was fast, methodical, rifling through the drawers as if he knew exactly where to find what he was looking for. Ethan's pulse quickened. Whoever these people were, they were well prepared. The thief's gloved hands moved quickly, and a glint of gold caught Ethan's eye. The watch, the heirloom that had been passed down from generation to generation in his family, was now in the thief's hands. Ethan's stomach twisted with anger. This was no ordinary break-in. They knew what they were after, and they would stop at nothing to get it. Without a second thought, Ethan nodded to Rocky, who immediately understood the signal. The dog surged forward with incredible speed, his low growl cutting through the silence like a warning. The thief turned just in time to see Rocky's gleaming eyes and bared teeth, but it was too late. The dog lunged with fierce determination, knocking the intruder to the floor with a heavy thud. The intruder let out a grunt of surprise, but Rocky had him pinned, his powerful jaws snapping inches from the man's arm. Ethan quickly followed, rushing toward the scene. He had no time to think. He had to act fast. As he reached the scuffle, he saw the thief trying to wrestle himself free from Rocky's hold, his hand reaching for a weapon tucked into his waistband. Ethan's mind raced. There was no way the thief was getting away. He was going to stop him, no matter what. Ethan stepped forward, raising his foot and slamming it into the intruder's side. The force of the kick knocked the man off balance, but he quickly rolled with the momentum, springing to his feet and darting toward the hallway. Ethan's heart raced as the intruder's feet thudded against the floor, running toward the exit. The thief knew exactly what he was doing. He was making a break for it. And Ethan was not about to let him get away. "Rocky, go," Ethan shouted, his voice firm and commanding. Without hesitation, Rocky bolted after the man, his paws pounding against the hardwood floor. Ethan limped after them, the adrenaline coursing through his veins as he pushed his body past the sharp pain in his leg. The chase had begun. The intruder reached the hallway and rounded the corner just as Rocky gave chase. Ethan could hear the sound of Rocky's bark echoing through the house, followed by the rapid footsteps of the thief. The house was quiet, too quiet, and Ethan knew that the intruder wasn't alone. There was another one, somewhere close, waiting. His mind raced as he calculated his next move. He could feel his pulse in his ears, the sound of his heart pounding in time with his footsteps. He needed to stay focused. The quiet, nagging feeling in the back of his mind told him that something wasn't right. Suddenly, there was a sharp noise, the screech of the back door opening, followed by the loud rumble of an engine starting outside. Ethan's heart sank. The second intruder had escaped, and they were leaving with something far more valuable than Ethan could have ever imagined. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward, knowing that time was running out. He could hear Rocky's growl in the distance, and he knew that the dog was closing in. But as he rounded the corner into the kitchen, Ethan's eyes caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold. On the mantel, the gold watch, the symbol of his family's history, was gone. The thief had taken it, and Ethan was too late to stop him. His thoughts spun, and a heavy weight settled in his chest. The stolen watch wasn't just a family heirloom. It was a key to something much bigger. Ethan's mind raced as he tried to piece everything together. This wasn't a simple break-in. This was a well-planned operation. The intruders knew exactly what they were after, and they were prepared to do whatever it took to get it. With his heart heavy and his mind focused, Ethan knew one thing. He couldn't let them get away with it. He would get the watch back, no matter what it took. Ethan stood still for a moment, staring at the empty mantel where his grandfather's watch had once rested. The gold timepiece, a family treasure, was gone. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was the symbol of everything his family had worked for. The watch had been passed down from generation to generation, a reminder of the strength, legacy, and promises made by those who came before him. To lose it was not just a theft. It was an attack on everything Ethan held dear. His fingers tightened into fists, and his pulse quickened. His thoughts raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The intruders hadn't come for just anything. They had known what they were after. This wasn't a random crime. It was personal. "Rocky," Ethan whispered, his voice low but firm. The dog, who had been pacing by the door, turned his head toward Ethan, sensing the change in his tone. "We're not done yet. Let's find them." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he grabbed his phone and dialed the police. The call was answered by a calm dispatcher, but Ethan's words felt urgent, forced. "My house was broken into. They took something valuable, a family heirloom." The dispatcher asked for the details, but Ethan didn't have much to offer. He couldn't explain the significance of the watch, the depth of what had just been stolen. The police, he knew, wouldn't understand. This was something much bigger than a simple break-in. After hanging up, Ethan grabbed his jacket and rushed out the door. The cool morning air hit his face, and the weight of the situation pressed down on him. He wasn't sure where he was going, but he knew one thing for certain. He had to get that watch back. He wasn't about to let anyone destroy his family's legacy. The sound of his boots echoed through the quiet street as he walked briskly toward his truck. Rocky, always by his side, trotted along with him, his ears pricked and his eyes scanning the surroundings, alert for any signs of danger. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine, the rumble of the truck serving as a reminder of the battle ahead. As he drove through the narrow streets of Maplewood, his mind raced with questions. Who were these people? What did they want with his grandfather's watch? And why had they chosen his house to rob? He knew the answer wasn't as simple as just stealing a valuable item. There was more to this story, much more. His thoughts drifted back to the words of his grandfather, Caleb Harper, who had passed away years ago. Caleb had been a brilliant inventor, a man ahead of his time. Ethan had always admired his grandfather's determination and wisdom, but it wasn't until recently that Ethan had truly understood the weight of his grandfather's work. Caleb had been working on something big, but he had never shared the details with Ethan. It had been a family secret, one that Caleb had kept hidden until the day he died. Ethan knew now that the watch wasn't just a timepiece. It was a key to something far more important than anyone could have imagined. He had heard rumors about his grandfather's work, whispers about a groundbreaking discovery that had the potential to change the world. But no one knew exactly what that discovery was, not even Ethan. Caleb had kept it close to his chest, trusting only a few people with the details. Ethan had never fully understood why, but now it was clear. Whoever had stolen the watch was after something much bigger than money. They were after Caleb's legacy. Ethan's thoughts were interrupted as he turned down a familiar street. He had arrived at the antique shop, a place that had been a part of his family for years. The shop, Trenwick Antiques, was small and unassuming, tucked away between two larger buildings on the edge of town. Ethan parked his truck and stepped out, the cold air biting at his skin. Rocky, as always, was by his side, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. The bell above the door jingled as Ethan entered the shop, the familiar smell of aged wood and polished brass filling his senses. Behind the counter, an elderly man with thin, wiry glasses looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly as he recognized Ethan. "Mr. Harper," the man said with a slight smile. "I was wondering when you'd come by. Your grandfather's watch, you say? Stolen, I presume." Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. "Yes. It's gone. And I need to know everything you can tell me about it." Elias Trenwick, the owner of the shop, didn't say anything at first. He simply opened a worn leather ledger and slid it across the counter. A faded photograph of the watch appeared, alongside Caleb Harper's signature in flowing ink. "That watch," Trenwick began, his voice soft but steady, "isn't just valuable because of the gold. It's far more important than that. It's a key to something your grandfather worked on for years, something that, if placed in the wrong hands, could cause great harm." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean? What was it that my grandfather was working on?" Trenwick hesitated, his fingers tracing the edge of the photograph. "Your grandfather was a genius, Ethan. A brilliant man, ahead of his time. That watch was more than just a timepiece. It was the key to accessing a vault, a safe he built during the war. Inside that vault were the plans for a breakthrough in energy transmission, something that could change the world." Ethan's mind reeled. "Energy transmission? What are you talking about? Why didn't he tell me about this?" Trenwick looked at Ethan, his eyes filled with both admiration and regret. Caleb didn't want anyone to know. The technology he created was powerful, yes, but it was also dangerous. He didn't want it falling into the wrong hands. That's why he kept it hidden, why he trusted so few people. But now, someone knows about it, and they will stop at nothing to get it. Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. "Who's behind this? Who's trying to steal my grandfather's legacy?" Trenwick sighed, his expression heavy. "It's someone from Caleb's past, a man named Victor Vexel. He and Caleb were once colleagues, working together on energy transmission during the war. But Caleb patented the technology first, and Vexel never forgave him for it. Now Vexel has sent his people to take what he believes is his." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Vexel. I've heard that name before. But why the watch? What's so special about it?" Trenwick nodded grimly. "The watch is the key, Ethan. It contains the encryption needed to unlock the vault. Without it, no one can access the plans. But with it, Vexel can use your grandfather's work for his own purposes. And trust me, Ethan, you don't want to know what that might be." Ethan stood frozen, his mind spinning with this new information. The watch was more than just a family heirloom. It was the key to a technological breakthrough that could change the world. But it was also the key to a dangerous past, one that had resurfaced with a vengeance. "We have to stop him," Ethan said, determination filling his voice. Frenwick looked at him, a shadow of fear crossing his face. "You're already too late. Vexel has already started making his moves. But if you're serious about protecting your grandfather's legacy, you'll have to do more than just recover the watch. You'll need to find Vexel before he's able to do anything with it." Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then let's go find him." As he left the shop, Rocky at his side, Ethan's mind raced. The battle had just begun, and he would not rest until his family's legacy was safe, no matter the cost. The air had grown thicker as the afternoon turned into evening, the dimming light casting long shadows across the abandoned streets of the industrial district. Ethan's mind buzzed with a growing sense of urgency. With Rocky at his side, he had now learned the true nature of the heist. It wasn't just about stolen valuables, but about something much greater, his grandfather's life's work. The stolen watch, the key to unlocking Caleb Harper's legacy, had already set a dangerous chain of events into motion. But Ethan wasn't about to let that happen. As he drove toward the old steelworks, the Wexler foundry, his grip on the steering wheel tightened. The foundry had been closed for years, its rusted, crumbling structure a relic of a bygone era. It was the perfect place for someone like Vexel to conduct shady dealings without attracting too much attention. Ethan knew the risks. The air felt charged with the weight of what lay ahead. He had already seen the level of violence Vexel was willing to unleash. His brother Daz, the reluctant accomplice, had revealed enough about the mercenaries and the twisted nature of the operation. This wasn't just about an auction for the stolen technology. This was the culmination of decades of rivalry between Vexel and Caleb, one that had remained hidden from the world until now. The foundry loomed ahead, its jagged silhouette cutting through the dimming sky. Ethan parked his truck a few blocks away, eyes scanning the area for any signs of movement. Rocky, as always, was alert, his body tense, ears pricked, nose twitching as he sensed the danger ahead. Ethan knew he couldn't do this alone. But he wasn't without his advantages. He had the experience, the training, and most importantly, the loyalty of a dog who had been with him through the darkest moments of his life. The two of them moved toward the foundry's rear entrance, where a narrow alleyway provided the only cover. Ethan's mind sharpened with each step, the weight of the situation hanging heavy in the air. He knew this would be a fight to the finish. He had come too far, lost too much, and fought too hard to let it end here. They approached the side of the building, using the rusted steel crates for cover. Rocky led the way, his steps measured and silent, while Ethan followed closely, his senses attuned to every sound and movement. As they reached the rear door, Ethan signaled for Rocky to stay back. The door was slightly ajar, enough to see into the dimly lit room beyond. He could hear voices, low and steady, talking in hushed tones. The time was now. Ethan carefully pushed the door open, his pulse racing, and slipped inside. The room was a cavernous space, filled with the musty scent of old metal and the faint odor of gasoline. The low hum of machinery echoed off the steel walls. A group of men were gathered around a table, their attention focused on a projector screen displaying blueprints of a device Ethan had seen only in his grandfather's old journals. Vexel was standing at the front of the group, his cold eyes scanning the room. He didn't seem surprised to see Ethan, almost as if he'd been expecting him. The sight of the man was like a punch to the gut. Vexel was older now, but his presence still exuded a quiet menace. His hands were steady as he gestured toward the screen, speaking in a calm, measured tone. "This is it," Vexel said, his voice carrying across the room. "This is what we've all been waiting for. The plans for Caleb Harper's wireless energy transmitter. With this, we can control the future. The highest bidder will have the power to change the world." Ethan's jaw tightened. He had no time for Vexel's theatrics. He needed the watch and the plans to ensure this madness ended now. He glanced around the room, noting the mercenaries posted at the exits, their hands resting on the handles of guns. Vexel turned toward the table, reaching for something hidden in plain sight, a briefcase, locked tight. He held it up, and for a split second, Ethan could see the gleaming gold watch inside, nestled between layers of foam. His heart skipped a beat. It was almost within reach. But just as he prepared to make his move, something changed. The room went quiet, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. Rocky had sensed it before Ethan did. A figure stepped into the doorway, tall and broad, with a black hoodie that obscured his face. The mercenaries tensed, their hands twitching toward their weapons. Ethan didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, charging at the nearest mercenary, his fist connecting with the man's jaw in a sharp, swift punch. The mercenary crumpled to the floor, and Ethan spun, knocking another guard's weapon from his hands. The sound of gunshots rang through the room as the chaos erupted. Ethan ducked behind a stack of crates, narrowly avoiding the spray of bullets aimed at him. "Rocky, stay with me," he shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. The dog was already ahead of him, charging into the fray with a terrifying ferocity. Rocky's jaws locked around a mercenary's leg, pulling him to the ground with a sickening thud. Ethan grabbed another man by the collar, slamming him against the wall before delivering a brutal punch to his ribs. The sound of bones cracking echoed in the room as the fight continued. Vexel watched from the corner of the room, his eyes glinting with amusement. He knew that Ethan had come for the watch, and now he wanted to see him try to take it. "You're wasting your time, Harper," Vexel called out, his voice smooth and mocking. "You can fight all you want, but you'll never get the watch back. It's already too late." Ethan's breath came in sharp, controlled bursts as he advanced toward Vexel. He was too focused on the man to notice the mercenaries regrouping. One of them, a tall figure with a scar across his face, stepped forward, leveling his rifle at Ethan. The gunshot came too quickly for Ethan to react, but just as the bullet was about to hit, Rocky leaped into the line of fire, taking the shot himself. The sound of the bullet ripping through the air was followed by a loud yelp from the dog. Ethan's heart dropped into his stomach as Rocky staggered back, blood trickling from the wound. "No," Ethan roared, his body exploding with adrenaline. He slammed into the mercenary, knocking the rifle from his hands and sending him crashing to the ground. But his focus was on Rocky. "Rocky, stay with me," he whispered, his voice trembling as he knelt beside his dog. The animal's chest heaved with every breath, but his eyes remained focused on Ethan, unwavering in his loyalty. The room around them had fallen silent, save for the sound of Rocky's breathing and Ethan's hurried movements. Vexel smiled coldly, but his eyes showed a flicker of concern. "You really think you've won, Harper?" he sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You've lost before you even started." Ethan looked up, his eyes hard and filled with determination. "Not yet." With a final burst of strength, Ethan lunged toward the briefcase, his fingers closing around the gold watch. As he pulled it from the case, a faint click echoed through the room. Vexel's smug expression faltered. Ethan's hand tightened around the watch. This wasn't over. It was only just beginning.